Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, the 163rd day of the year and National Call Your Doctor Day, established back in 2016 by the nonprofit organization called Bright Pink as a reminder to women to get their annual exams, but it is a great reminder for men and women to get to the doctor for a checkup. Early prevention is key. In the headlines this Tuesday, President Biden seemed to freeze up during the White House Juneteenth celebration last night. And again, the Juneteenth holiday is not until June 19th, so not sure why they were having this celebration last night. But then Biden appeared to slur words beyond comprehension during his speech.
Last month, I awarded Meg Rivers the Presidential Medal of Freedom, our nation's highest civilian honor, posthumously. You can believe it, banning books about black experiences. Okay.
And while the media in this country ignores it, the media in many other countries is again talking about it. This comes as Mr. Biden's approval rating dropped to an all-new low yesterday of 37.4%. That according to 538's tracker. Jury deliberations continuing, meanwhile, in Hunter Biden's felony gun trial today. He is facing prison time. A verdict could come at any moment, of course, or it may have already been delivered before you even got to listen to the Newsmax Daily. Newsmax will certainly keep you posted. In fact, Rob Finnerty will have more on Hunter's case in just a few minutes. And the latest attempt at getting Donald Trump, who had to have a virtual meeting with a parole officer yesterday, comes from the New Jersey Attorney General, who has its Division of Alcoholic Beverage Control reviewing Trump's liquor licenses in New Jersey following his criminal conviction in New York. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken is back in Israel attempting to broker a UN-backed peace deal and ceasefire.
The United Nations Security Council, in effect speaking for the entire international community, made it as clear as it possibly could be that this is what the world is looking for. The proposal that President Biden put forward is the best way to do that.
Blinken met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and he met with family members of the remaining 8 American hostages.
For me, all of the hostages, but especially our 8 American families who have loved ones in Gaza, we are determined to bring them home.
Hamas leaders in Qatar say there will be no release of hostages without a ceasefire and without Israel leaving Gaza, which is not very likely. Israel has been clear its mission is to completely wipe out Hamas. And Blinken's arrival in Tel Aviv comes after the not-so-peaceful pro-Hamas demonstrations outside the White House over the weekend. More on that from Newsmax host Katrina Szish on American Agenda.
Over the weekend at the White House, there was a massive anti-Israel protest. These people chanting and marching through parts of D.C., calling for a ceasefire. Some even spraying graffiti over monuments, throwing objects at park police, others holding up a bloody mask depicting President Biden. But if you ask the Biden administration if they support this, well, you're still not going to get a straight answer. Watch.
President Biden certainly, unlike President Trump, supports the freedom of speech and the freedom of expression. So obviously these protesters are exercising their right, and that is their right to do. That being said, we certainly understand that it's a challenge. President Biden is certainly fighting for every vote. He's not taking anything for granted. But look, this is the freedom that people have. Going back to the message of freedom, they have the right to protest. They have the right to speak their mind.
They absolutely do. But, Katrina, there's another video where the officer you were talking about was getting hit with bottles. That's assault on an officer.
Yes, it is.
Well, why can't that administration...
It's not a peaceful protest.
It's not.
Right.
And why can't they say, we support free speech? Obviously, we all do. But we're going to go after those people who assaulted our officer.
I think it depends what they're protesting about.
Yes, or maybe who they plan to vote for.
Precisely.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Katrina Szish and Bob Brooks on American Agenda. That's 2 o'clock Eastern on Newsmax. President Biden has one event Something on gun violence in Washington today on his calendar before leaving for the G7 summit in Italy tomorrow. And what about the political developments in Italy and the rest of Europe? The topic of discussion on Rob Schmitt Tonight.
On Sunday, 185 million Europeans voted in 27 different countries to choose which party would represent them in the EU Parliament, the governing body of the entire European Union. And the results were incredible. The traditionally left-wing EU Parliament now has a center-right coalition that has the most power, scoring a clear victory in Sunday's European Parliament election, tilting the EU's agenda to the right, said Politico. Other parties even further to the right saw major gains as well, with left-wing progressive parties like Renew Europe and Greens EFA suffering massive losses. This election was a political earthquake in Europe, and it's certainly being felt here in the United States. Europe, which has been on the path to self-destruction by the left for quite a while now, sacrificing quality of life, safety, and security to appease their insatiable leftist agenda. Europe has welcomed an invasion of 29 million so-called asylum seekers from the Middle East and North Africa in just the last 10 years, decimating once beautiful European cities and turning their culture to squalor. The cultural Marxist dream of blending the entire world into one is on full display on that continent. Ironically, the president of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, is actually a member of the Conservative Party, which now has the largest coalition. She's also the least authentic member. Watch as this climate manic globalist attempted to celebrate the results.
But it is also true that the extremes on the left and on the right have gained support. And this is why the result comes with great responsibility for the parties in the center. I fight every day for a strong Europe, and these election results show that the majority of Europeans want a strong Europe.
Spoiler alert, she is the far left, just posing as so many of them do. Europe has more fake conservatives than the United States does, pushing climate change mandates, forced asylum requirements for each country, globalist economic policies. That's who she is, leading to mass protests by farmers and commoners all throughout Europe as globalists threaten the food supply in pursuit of their asinine agendas, among so many other atrocities they have committed against their own people.
That's Rob Schmitt, who spoke about it with former Ambassador Rick Grinnell.
This was a political earthquake across the European Union on Sunday. Talk about the weight of this moment.
I mean, look, you really have to look at what's happening in Europe and realize that progressive policies are under attack. People realize the woke left, when they put together their governments and they put together their policies, they can't produce. People are unhappy. The economies tank. And so you look from Germany to France to Belgium, everywhere there is a Republican conservative style sweep. Now, I hope that's going to happen in our country as well, but we got some work to do. The Europeans have watched inflation take over. They've watched their economies go to the bottom. And suddenly now you've got countries like France that are scaring Macron because the conservatives are marching towards a takeover, and he's just called for elections. He's that scared. So I think when you look at the AfD, for instance, in Germany, a far-right party, they're now the second largest party in all of Germany. What's happening across Europe is really a backlash. And remember, Rob, the European Union became smaller because of Brexit. The British said, we're out of here because the rest of Europe couldn't control the immigration issue. We need to learn from the Europeans on immigration. When a leader cannot handle the immigration issue in a proper way, the people revolt. I think we're seeing that in America as well.
Former ambassador to Germany and acting director of U.S. intelligence, Rick Grinnell, on Rob Schmitt Tonight. Speaking of U.S. intelligence, today, right now, U.S. naval assets are shadowing a flotilla of Russian warships. You know, that's like a group of ships, a flotilla. They're following them in the air and in the ocean off the east coast of Florida as the Russian ships head to Cuba. According to Newsweek, the Pentagon called it a routine visit by Russia to Cuba that poses no direct threat to the United States. Routine or not, how do you feel about Russian warships, including a nuclear submarine, going to Cuba? 90 miles from Miami. And what's even worse, 350 miles from CENTCOM in Tampa. That's Central Command. I don't like it, especially since I live in Florida. Alabama, Louisiana, and Texas, where our oil reserve is located, is all easily accessible from the Gulf of Mexico. Okay, let's go back to the Hunter Biden gun trial with Rob Finnerty on last night's edition of Prime News.
The laptop the left said was fake 4 years ago is now a key piece of evidence against Hunter Biden because it's real. And it does matter. And if people knew about it in 2020, maybe Donald Trump is president today. According to one poll, after the election, 17% of voters said they might have voted a different way if they knew about the laptop before the election. But frankly, forget about that poll. If the number was 1%, that matters. If the number was 0.5%, that matters. And for Jill Biden, the First Lady, it's got to be just embarrassing to sit there hearing the ugly truth. If you told me in 2020 that Joe Biden's Department of Justice would eventually introduce the Hunter Biden laptop as a key piece of evidence in a case against Hunter Biden in a criminal trial in Delaware in 2024, I would have said you were just nuts, absolutely crazy. But that's exactly where we are today. And if Hunter's convicted by this time tomorrow or at some point this week, it's going to be that same laptop that finally brings him down. So Hunter Biden didn't testify today. The jury got the case. It's amazing how fast, by the way, a Biden case goes compared to a Trump case. Trump cases go 7 weeks for a bookkeeping error. This judge in Delaware had no problem holding court on Wednesdays. Guess what? Trials can happen on Wednesdays, Judge Merchan. But if Hunter does get off, and Hunter always gets off, we learned that in the laptop, this will be the best example we've ever seen of Biden law in action, better than the Trump case. Basically, Biden's put people in jail, people like Steve Bannon, Peter Navarro, maybe Donald Trump. Biden's don't go to jail. And if the jury lets Hunter walk, the power of the Bidens will be on full display for the world to see. Hunter was a drug addict back in 2018. He admits that in his book. There was testimony that Hunter did drugs every 20 minutes. There was a text message of Hunter trying to buy drugs from a guy named Mookie about 24 hours before he allegedly bought this gun. And if he gets off, the jury's basically saying, look, fine, Hunter might have done drugs, but he didn't actually do drugs when he bought that gun. Not that day, not when he was filling out that form, not on that day, which we all know is totally true. And while all this was playing out in Delaware today, down in Florida, Donald Trump sat for a virtual interview with a probation officer this afternoon. Yes, you heard me right. The former leader of the free world, a man with no prior criminal record, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, a man who might be our next president, actually met with a probation officer today who can pretty much demand anything she wants from the former president. She can demand drug tests. She can limit his travel, you name it.
That's Newsmax host Rob Finnerty, the co-host of Wake Up America, but filling in on Prime News last night. Prime News is at 8 o'clock Eastern, where The Balance with Eric Bolling used to be. Trump's interview with New York City probation officials lasted less than a half an hour. Trump participated remotely from Mar-a-Lago, as I mentioned yesterday. His attorney, Todd Blanche, was with him. Most defendants do not get to have their attorney with them, but the former president was given permission to be accompanied by his attorney. The process was described as cordial and routine and lasting less than 30 minutes, which I guess is shorter than those things typically last. All right, don't forget, today is the day that former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, I talked about it yesterday, he will testify to a House subcommittee about his actions during the COVID pandemic, allowing infected people into nursing homes specifically, which led to the deaths of thousands of elderly New Yorkers whose family members are now suing the state. That should be a very contentious hearing. And Even if you are not the least bit interested in women's basketball, Caitlin Clark, or the Olympics, there has been no escaping all the media coverage and all the debate concerning all of the three things I just mentioned, which was the focus of this segment on Monday's Chris Salcedo Show.
WNBA rookie Caitlin Clark, who's considered to be one of the greatest women's college basketball players in a generation, skyrocketing in popularity in the WNBA. But not only is the rookie phenom getting roughed up on the hard court, but she's been snubbed by Team USA basketball, being left off the roster for the Olympic team. The treatment she's getting has a lot of folks scratching their heads. Joining me now to help make sense of all this is host of the Michele Tafoya podcast, legendary sports reporter Michele Tafoya. Great to see you, lady, and welcome. You know, as a sports fan, I'm used to great players being lauded and celebrated in their respective sport. What is going on with Caitlin Clark?
You know, I think she has gotten so much attention from so many parts of the basketball world and the world in general. And it sort of surprised people. But she's deserved the attention and earned the attention. She's college basketball's highest scorer ever, male or female. I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment. And she plays the game in a way that I've never seen another woman play it. A lot of people liken her game to that of Steph Curry, the great guard from Golden State. So it's a unique combination of this productive, exciting, accessible player. And she's set the ratings records for the NCAA women's tournament, and you have to attribute it to her.
Right. There's a lot of excitement because of her style of play. Well, we have devoted left-wingers out there, Joyless Reed and Jemele Hill. They had to bring racial politics into all this. Listen.
How much of this do you think, though, is the marketing potential of a Caitlin Clark? Because, quite frankly, this is a league that is largely, as you said, largely black women. It's also largely LGBTQ. She's a white heterosexual woman. And so if you're trying to get white dads to go spend their money and buy season tickets, she seems like a marketing opportunity. How much of it is that?
So when you say that Caitlin Clark's whiteness and the fact that she's straight plays a role, underlined a role in her popularity, that's not a diss to Caitlin Clark. It's just simply America.
Hashtag America.
Oh, okay. So according to Reed, the only reason America can like Caitlin is because she's white. It has nothing to do with her talent at all. You know, I remember when sports used to bring us all together. Isn't the politicizing of sports kind of what's ruining sports?
Well, it certainly seems to be, and I lived through it with the Colin Kaepernick kneeling during the NFL and all of the stuff that went along with that. Listen, I will give Jemele Hill some credit first for saying it is one of the reasons she might be popular, that she is straight and white and that dads may want to buy tickets and buy season tickets. She underscored one of the reasons. But Caitlin Clark is insanely talented. People act as though it would be this almost sympathetic or, oh, let's give her a little pat on the back and put her on the Olympic team. No, they would not lose a step with Caitlin Clark on the team. You've got 12 spots on that roster. The USA Basketball gets to choose its 12 players. There are a bunch of different combinations they could have gone with. Any one of them could have included Caitlin Clark, and they would have been just fine. She's not going to set them back. And what she is going to do is bring 50 times the eyeballs to the Olympics and Paris and all that excitement, which, you know what that does? That elevates every other player on the Olympic team, no matter what color they are. So they had me till hashtag America, like we're some sort of racist country. No, you know what? If that were the case, the WNBA wouldn't even exist, because they're right. It is 60% African American, and we love those players and everything they bring to the game. You suddenly have a generational talent, I'll compare her to like a Tiger Woods, that brings a whole new audience to the sport. I don't see anything wrong with that.
Longtime sportscaster Michele Tafoya on the Chris Salcedo Show. This year's women's college basketball finals, if you didn't know, had the highest ratings in history, followed by last year's finals, which also featured the same two teams. And according to ticket broker StubHub, WNBA sales are up 90% from last season. Indiana Fever tickets, that's the team that Caitlin Clark plays for, are 13 times higher than last season. However, there are only 12 slots on the Olympic team, as Michelle mentioned. And as popular and as good as Caitlin Clark is, maybe as a rookie, she just isn't one of the 12 best players in the world right now. Trying to be fair and look at both sides of this debate, right? But it's not because she's white or black, not because she's straight or gay, but she is outscoring all other rookies. She didn't help her cause last night, having a bad game, scoring only 10 points. But the debate is certainly going to go on for a while because the Olympics don't even start for another month or so. In other sports news, the Florida Panthers now have a 2-0 lead on the Oilers going to Edmonton Thursday night. The Dallas Mavericks, down 2-0, host the Celtics tomorrow night in Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Wall Street opening in the red this morning as the Federal Reserve begins its 2-day policy meeting today. They will have their announcement tomorrow afternoon. They are expected, once again, to hold interest rates steady, but as I mentioned yesterday, also expected to lower interest rates more than once sometime this year. Make sure you're keeping up with all of the news all day on Newsmax, available on most major cable systems like AT&T, Comcast, Cox Cable, Optimum, Spectrum, Suddenlink, Mediacom, Xfinity, as well as Dish and DirecTV. And also make sure you're streaming on the new Newsmax Plus. If you're not, go to NewsmaxPlus.com, get signed up right away. You can also get a free trial. It includes all of your favorite shows and hosts, like Rob Schmitt Tonight, Greg Kelly Reports, The Record with Greta Van Susteren, Carl Higbee, and much more, with fantastic analysis from people like Governor Mike Huckabee, Professor Alan Dershowitz, Judge Napolitano. There's documentaries, there's special programming, there's Trump rallies, NewsmaxPlus.com. I'm Tony Marino. Thank you so much, as always, for listening to the Newsmax Daily. Share it with your friends and family. Enjoy the rest of your day and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
It's our America. We conquered it. We built it. Great values like honesty and fairness. Great courage. A great nation needs a free press. Newsmax is it. 30 million Americans regularly go to Newsmax when they really need to know. They watch Newsmax TV at home. On the free Newsmax app, they go to Newsmax.com. Start today. Newsmax is real news for real people.